Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Football United TV. I am joined by my guy, Eric, hanging out in Madrid. We are talking all about Chelsea today. But before we get into it, let's bring on that fabulous intro. Yes, people, we're back. Welcome to Football United TV. If you are new to the channel, thank you so much for tuning in. Please, if you can, smash, subscribe, share, and like. It really does help us out. I am joined today by none other than one of my best pals, living in Madrid, originally from Sacramento, California, the Don, the Master, the Maestro. Loads of words, mate. Can say how I feel about you, bro. Eric Pye, how you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be on the Living Legend show himself. You know, I get to hang out with the Mastero, the football. He's got all the updates, the news, the feedbacks. He digs in with the people. He's the people's person. He's a man for the people. This man goes out of his way. He gives anybody a chance who knows football and loves football to hop on and give them the opportunity to speak. And so for that, I say thank you. And I am honored to be on your show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Eric. And you know what? I'm so thankful that you showed me in Madrid, Chali Papas.
Absolutely. I mean, I had to. I mean, you're in Spain, you have to try the tapas. The salchipapas are one of a kind, especially just on the corner from where I live. I mean, by the way, if you're ever in Ibiza, pop over and try these salchipapas because they are fantastic. They are grade A1. But I know that why I'm on here is to talk football, talk Chelsea. So I'm going to bounce this back to you and we can pop right into this because I would love to give you some feedback on some, as a Chelsea fan and like, a spectator. I mean, just being able to see and tell you the feedback of where Chelsea was at the beginning of the season to where Chelsea is now. Because it's there's quite a few things I can go into on exactly where Chelsea needs help and where Chelsea could adjust. And there's also different, people would take it's like a hot take on basically injuries, COVID. I mean, the Premier League itself was affected by COVID. It's not just, I'm not complaining just as a Chelsea fan. I mean, you had games where teams and staff, postponements, all of these different things. It's a bit controversial in a sense. And it's a subject that you could really bring up because it part of football. And I think that every team can say that, but that's just football now. It's controversial because you could say that as a fan, like, oh, my team had, sicknesses and injuries and everything like that. But so did other teams. So you can't really complain as like a football fan. You know what I mean? It's more, it's an interesting retrospect because, football, as we know, has kind of changed to begin with, to where these new regulations, these new rules, I think it's being tested right now. What works for the fan, what works for the person who's really being able to be integrated and dedicate their time to watch it versus what is it in it for the players as well. And I think that, that's where you talk about this, FIFA World Cup happening every 2 years, because on one end, they're both right. You know what I mean? One hand, you do have numbers going down by viewers in the younger generation. They're just more into other things. And two, you have players who are putting their bodies on the line every single day for the game. And so you kind of have to find a balance between the two. Otherwise, that's a right, and then you throw the fan into that dynamic, you know what I mean? To where it starts to be interesting. But back to the point of Chelsea where, Like
Yeah, what are you thinking, mate? What are you thinking about Chelsea right
no,
now?
I mean, I could start off with that point. Like, one of the things that you notice about Chelsea's formation, especially at the beginning of the season, they were so hard to score against. What did we go like 10 games with conceded like whoa. It was we the lowest goal ratio at the beginning of the season. That was what it was.
Yeah.
Everyone complained. Everyone used to make fun of us for having this kind of dynamic of wing back and like you have 5 defenders in midfield, but like it worked. You know what I mean? You have goals tactically bought and signed. When Ben Chilwell came to the club, you had Reece James on one side, you had Ben Chilwell on the outside. And it's like you have these two positions where it's like it's new in this football game towards outside, but and it's not, you haven't just seen it at Chelsea. You see it kind of a little bit at Arsenal, but it's like this new position of like wing back attacking kind of position where you've got like Trent, for example, and on Liverpool, and then like you have these fast wing backs who are able to score now, and that's just how football has just kind of changed. I mean, I look at the missing of Chidwell and Reece James just recent weeks. Chidwell out for the rest of the season. Reece James pulled up for what was it, like 2 months or something like that. He's only now kind of getting. That's a missing link. You know what I mean? That's you could say, and we've been hit with COVID, like back-to-back games. We're in the Club World Cup. You have all this, and like you're throwing another factor into football. You know what I mean? Football's just now the buy, like, and it can change. It can. And I'm saying the controversy with Lukaku, you could go into that about that, like just setting us back just as a club. I think that put us at a point, like, because as a fan, you're just disappointed. You sign this guy for $100 million. This is his boyhood club. He says he loves everything like this, and then he goes on Sky Sports, one of the biggest networks, in you know what I mean, and just does his interview and just kind of like, oh, I don't know how I like it. Like that sets us back as a team. Like that was, and I can get back into that, but as a Chelsea fan, I've just kind of had to watch this mess kind of happen. That still kind of works because I think that Tuchel is a very, very good coach, and I think that he's one of the best things to happen to the club, especially winning that Champions League and like building a new dynamic of play to where he's really he cares about each one of his players. He cares about their, and that's what I appreciate about him the most.
Yeah, Eric. I mean, look. I mean, talking about Tuchel as well. Looking at the Lukaku situation and the thing that came out with him in the media and what he said, his comments about wanting to possibly go back to Inter Milan. Do you think Tuchel dealt with that in the right way?
Absolutely,
as the manager.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, it's a very tough decision when you buy in a player.
Never agreed to that. Tuchel would have never agreed to let that happen. He would have said, and I'm sorry for jumping, but like that's but like that's that right there.
You're my bro. You go.
You know what I mean? Like, because I'm a passionate fan, and like it's like it really did. It's like a blow. Like, you have this guy who we're so excited to have you back at the club. Like, we feel like we're like we have a team now, a team that could re-win the Champions League. If we did it once, and the way we did it was because the interesting thing is nobody expected Chelsea to walk in and just beat these big teams, and they handled them. They handled every one of these giants on both legs in a sense defensively, and defense wins championships at the end of the day. Like, that's, it's crazy as it sounds, Tuchel broke every attacking team down, and he played them defensively. He played Conte perfectly. He played Reece James and Chidwell perfectly. He from having Mason Mount run, and like when we didn't have a striker at some times, like, you know what I mean, we played Havertz at times because and as much as as much as, well, I'm not even me, it's just Chelsea fans probably in general, we look at Timo Werner because the amount of money we've paid for him and the amount we've got back from him, because he still has promise. He's young, he's got time. But filling the number 9 role at Chelsea, or the striker, or the main striker at Chelsea, is a very difficult job. You have to either have played in the Premier League or played at another team that could. You have to be a big, you know what I mean? To where here you have this kid who banged in, what was it? He banged in how many goals at RB Leipzig? Like 35 in a season, something like that.
I haven't got that many fingers and toes to
count.
You
know what I mean? Like the kid was just knocking him in, and you see that he has that in him. But he probably, I would say, go out on loan and prove us wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, prove that you have that kid that we saw at RB Leipzig in you, and then come back, because that's what you got to do in that situation. And I wish that we did that with Torres when he got to Chelsea, because that's one of the biggest regrets as a Chelsea fan that most people wouldn't see, is that, like, here you have this £50 million signing and you feel like you didn't get anything out of him in any season. I can't remember what the stat was on how many times he like hit the post or was like caught offside like by an inch or something like that, to where like maybe if he even had VAR at the time, because that was before VAR even came into the game.
Well, Eric, I remember that one goal that Torres scored that got you into the final of the Champions League.
And that for me, like, I here's the thing. As a Chelsea fan, it was kind of crazy, because here you have this guy who also, I think there's a stat on how many goals he has against Chelsea. Like, it's something crazy, like whether it was Champions League, whether it was Premier League. He had some, like, I think his first game back from like a torn ACL, he comes in and bangs 2 against us. Like, I think his very first goal in club was against us. He loves scoring. Like, that in my opinion was probably Czech's worst nightmare. And I mean that. I genuinely mean that. I think that maybe, you could throw Thierry Henry on that conversation. You could throw, but like Torres against Chelsea, like, it was a dread. He was a problem every single time. So when you sign this guy who gave us nightmares, you're thinking oh man, this is, he's going to give us, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure, especially given your injury history. Like, and from what I can see, he handled it well. Because there were days where he would get really close. There were days where he would blow it. Like, I'll never forget the one against Man United, where you have an open net and you miss it. But the fact that he rebounded from that, because you go from one of the greatest strikers of all time to missing an open net, that's like 2 different worlds. You know what I mean? Because you've seen Torres and you've seen Torres, and that's one of the things that's football. He was, I think, that striker in him came out in games like against Barcelona. Calm, cool, perfect touch in front of him. Calm, cool head, takes it around Valdez and puts it in the net. Sends us to the Champions League final. You can never forget. You can never forget.
I'm a United fan, and I remember watching that live, and I remember the commentator just they panned back, but just didn't realise what was going on. And you saw Fernando Torres losing that ball. It went back into Chelsea's box, and then a boot from Ashley Cole, I believe.
Yep.
Sent him on. Beautiful. But you were saying about RB Leipzig. Who were we talking about? Haaland.
Oh yeah, we could absolutely.
Do you think? I mean, sorry, RB Salzburg. He was originally from, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Dortmund. Do you think there's a chance of him going to Chelsea? Do you think Lukaku might leave?
No, I don't see it happening. I think that his destiny is probably in Spain. I think he can either try and fill Messi's boots at Barcelona, or he could become part of like a super team when Mbappe joins Real Madrid. And you could either go the rivalry, you could go and try and build the greatest team, rebuild the Galacticos essentially. And the Galacticos, still, it's a terrifying sight. It's a different kind of generate, like, and that's football generation. That's like, you know what I mean? That's where you see, and that's the best part about football, I think, is that you get to see kids recreating what we grew up with, because they're filling the boots and it's in their own way. You know what I mean?
Eric, are you playing in the 4th tier of
more or less
football?
More or less.
There was a player, I believe, for it might be either Gambia or Burkina Faso that plays in the 4th tier of Spanish football, who was playing in the AFCON yesterday. No. And I thought of you, bro, because I was like, maybe you might have played against him, seeing as it might be similar leagues. How is AS Madrid doing, Eric?
We're in the middle of the table. We're smack down in the middle of the table.
We got to push you up, mate.
No. We'll get. That's another conversation. We'll get to that. It's more. I think that's for another time. Another time.
We'll talk about it. We'd love to talk about AS Madrid
let's get back to
please. Yeah. So what I mean, bro, what do you think Chelsea need to do? Anything in the January transfer window? Do you think calling back players like Gallagher would
It's difficult.
be a
Like
thing?
I would try and sneak in a major signing, like not even a major signing, a mid signing. Like I was interested in the kids from Sevilla. That it's a center back from Sevilla, the young kid.
You got me. You've got me.
I
Centre back. Centre back. Yeah.
Cordell or
I can't remember, mate. Yeah.
we'll get back to that one. We'll get back to them. But I would say either going for somebody mid. It's hard to say. Because what we have works for us because we're sitting comfortably in the Premier League and we can finish out this season and then wait to sign players. I would say hold on to your players. I would say hand Tony Rudiger a new contract on whatever wage you need to give him because
is it Jules Koundé?
Yep, that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I would say try and get him in the lining because one, Azpilicueta is basically bound for Barcelona apparently. Either this window, I would hope not. I would hope that he finishes out the year as a Chelsea player, just because for me he's been our captain, like in big games, and he stepped up. And from somebody who came from Marseille, who nobody knew about, and we signed for 10 million pounds, like probably one of the best signings Chelsea's ever made and like for me, Premier League wise, because the man just lived this through cup after cup, and I think that what we will see is I hope that then that's football. If you can stay loyal and make the fans kind of happy because he is a key role, like it just in the club morally, like lifted the Champions League cup for us as a captain. I think that as a captain, he did, you know what I mean? Showed up every game he did, and that's what it's consistency. And I hope he stays that consistent with us until the end of the season. And then I would say I would give him a ovation. I'd send him off, well, because he deserves that. And somebody like him, who's dedicated to the club, dedicated to himself to the club, hats off for me. Like one of the best captains that's played at Chelsea.
Yeah. Would you put Dennis Wise there as well?
I would.
Yeah.
I would say, oof,
Poirier.
yeah.
He was a good captain. You had LeBeouf as well back in the day. You've had some good captains at Chelsea, haven't you? To be fair, like Lampard.
The Lampard is
Mhm.
you've got Lampard and Terry who both just it's what I grew up with. That's like it's Lampard, Terry, Drogba, Maluda, Anelka, the Cole. You had first Desai. Desai was probably the first player that I just like admired at Chelsea. I looked at Desai because he was just solid, and you just watched him stop everything. Like everything that came in his way, he'd just get in the way of. And you look at football and how it's changed and how what it was versus what it's now, and even still, it's still football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like doesn't matter, like and it goes, but when I look at a club like Chelsea, especially now, and I was thinking about it earlier, is there's times when you're disappointed even in your club. When they do the you hear about the chants, you hear about the stuff on the metro, and like and it's difficult sometimes.
What's hurt you? What's hurt you, mate? What you feel hurt by Chelsea recently? Is that?
No, it's not hurt by Chelsea, but it's kind of like it's football in general. I think there's a real disconnect from there was a real, especially after COVID, there was a real disconnect for a little bit with the fans and when you couldn't when it was played behind closed doors. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily saying that it's it's a situation. So you're human. You've got footballers on the field and you've got fans at home. And the fans, where there was a time when you didn't know football was ever going to come back. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You remember that. And ever since that, football's kind of been in this weird, with football, what's going on is VAR. You know what I mean? Like you've got there's all these, like I said, the new adjustments to football and
VAR as well.
VAR. It's a major factor. You know what I'm saying? Think
Yeah.
about how big of an impact VAR has had on football in terms,
Huge.
you know what I mean? Even to where, and it goes into the fundamentals of football in general. What needs to be thrown into football, and what football misses is, I think it needs a little more flair and a little more grace, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to have a dynamic of both. If you don't have both, then you miss it. I think that there was something about, like I said, the older generational teams to where they mixed the two together. You could just see a long ball. It's just pinged perfectly. You know what I mean? And we have that today in football. But I'm talking about, every game where these guys, it didn't matter. You get gritty, you get felt. And now you have people looking for penalties tactically. You have people, like, it's starting to get more and more. Like, I want to see shots from outside the box. And that was regular. You remember goals of the week. Now most of the goals are in the box, and I'm not saying that goals in the box aren't, expected. I think that one of the best players to do it is Mo Salah. That's just you've got a guy as a Chelsea fan, you even have to admit
There's a difference, isn't there, Eric, between Mo Salah and Lukaku, I guess, like when you're looking at upfront striking forces. Drogba as well was different from Salah, but I mean, would you pick Drogba over Salah as a striker?
No, and the thing is, I would say yes, only because you have to be a big man to work at Chelsea system. The reason that Mo Salah works at Liverpool is the team's built around the forwards, but you have quickness and speed that can deliver to those forwards on a quality regular basis. That's what Trent and who's the other wing back at Liverpool?
Robertson.
That's where you have Trent and Robertson that just do that on a regular basis. If you have quality, and that's what kind of Chelsea's replicated, is you've got, Reece James, who at one point this season was scoring more than our strikers. That to me says you have a player that can be and adjust to the new dynamic of football. He can get the ball out. You're now that you do a goal kick out of the back, you get that ball up the field as quickly as possible. You're a threat. You can score because people leave you space and they don't take you seriously because, oh, he's just a back and he's banging in goals. No, you teach those players how to adjust to that space and bang in goals. That's why Trent's such a threat. That's why Robertson's such a threat. That's why Reece James is such a threat. That's why Ben Chilwell's such a threat. That's why even Marcus Alonso, as much as people give him criticism, is he plays that role. It almost fits that would be his position. He doesn't necessarily have the defensive skill as everybody, but he can get to the attack and he can score.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be the best, and that's where football has changed. That wasn't there before. That's a new dynamic to football that you now have to be worried about wing backs. That you don't only see a wing. How many times would you really see a wing back go up and just be a threat like that?
Back in the day, not really. I used to remember Gary Neville just passing the ball to Beckham and saying,
"Yeah," and that's absolutely Ashley Cole to Drogba all day. They you know what I mean?
But Ashley Cole was the very good. Like he would cross balls. I think he would get a lot of assists. He was probably the first of that kind, I'd say.
In a sense, yeah. I mean, Patrice Evra as well, but Patrice wasn't necessarily a goal scorer, but he could cross. Antonio Valencia, Ashley Young even switched into that position at one point. And now you see it like in the formation. Before it was just kind of like, oh, during play, like you go out and you lay out a lineup. Like, no, now you're seeing teams start with that. Like, no, right off the bat, we're getting up the field. And that's a new way to get up the field even quicker, because if they're overlapping and making overlapping runs from the very, very back because it's coming out of the 18.
Yeah.
If a team's caught off guard, you can build up a play pretty quickly.
Yeah. Mate, I'm gonna shout out a few comments. We're gonna ask you another question, bro. Talk MU says big up. He says yo. Rich Sports says hi all. Hi Matt and Eric. Big up. Good evening Matt and Eric from Jackie. Big up Jackie and Miss Melina. Big up. Thank you so much for coming in, Miss Melina. It's been a long time. Hope you're very well. She says hi. Eric, do you think Chelsea will make top 4 this season?
They should.
They should do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say
but I
football.
don't know.
You know, I can't like it's football in a pandemic. You know, it's just, like, but no, I think that Chelsea will. Yes, I like it. Like I said, they should. It's not a matter of whether they should. They have the team for it. That's up to Chelsea. You know what I mean? I think that's same with United in terms of trying to even hold on to that spot.
Yeah.
United should finish top 4 with the team that they have and the money they've spent. And you're kind of now seeing United find their feet a little bit, and I think the best place to prove that you have a United team is, I don't see them doing. I'm just going to be realistic. I don't see them doing it in necessarily Champions League. I think that they need to reestablish themselves. If and I wouldn't say definitely go as far as you have Cristiano Ronaldo. That is Mr. Champions League. And time, as somebody who understands how he plays and shows up, that you have the biggest threat in Champions League. Use that. But don't force it. Ronaldo's still getting up there in age, but Ronaldo still is the reason that you're in Champions League. And a lot of people criticize him saying, oh, he's only showing up in he's Ronaldo and they're finished, Messi, this. And I would even say the same thing about Messi. Like, you have to understand, these are the 2 greatest players that we have seen in the 21st century. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And, you can argue about who's better. They're different players. That's the point. You set a game and you set the stage for Ronaldo to show up, and even Messi as well, during big important games, they will show up. That's what they've done year and year, time and time again. And as much as people criticize Messi, Messi is still showing up in games. He still goes in and gets the assist. He's hitting the post. He's just getting he's learning how to adjust to a completely new league. Yeah. For somebody who's been at one team, that's one thing I won't criticize about the guy. And I'm not saying that Messi is necessary. They're both the greatest players that we've seen in the 21st century. That's, and you could throw other players into the category of these big name players that goals just put in the back of that. We have to appreciate them first and foremost. And with Cristiano Ronaldo on your team, you have to be able to support that. I think United is missing a little bit. They were at one point with the firing of your managers, putting into a new manager, the arguments, the things that are even coming out in the media now. You have to support your club. That's what a fan, and I miss rivalries with the big name, United. And United still put on give us a good, but Chelsea recently has been more consistent to where that rivalry you miss where they that's the game where that's the Premier League on the line, because for a while that was where the neck and neck, and that was some of the best generational football. That kind of, now you're seeing kids, but you're seeing that even the Ronaldos who are trying to influence these kids, keep your head on straight and look what happens. And that's football, but it's also understanding the players are still human as well.
Yeah.
Things can happen. You see what I mean? Anything can happen.
Yeah.
And you got to keep your head on straight as a footballer first and foremost. I'm speaking about what just came out in the media recently. You can't be out doing crazy stuff, doing wild things, doing, you have to put this, like this is your life.
It's a
If you,
career.
you know what I mean, you can't separate the two. You got to understand what it takes to be a footballer, and that right there is it's saddening. It's that's crazy to me what I've just seen to me. I mean, it's like uh, I have no words for him.
Yeah, yeah, let's leave that.
It's especially as a United fan where you're already at, like, and I'm not saying that it's not better, but I saw a lot of United fans disappointed. Like I look at Instagram posts, I'm seeing people saying I'm no longer a fan. Like,
let's not go into
yeah,
that too much, Eric, because of obviously issues with like the
yeah,
court into it and police and
yeah.
stuff.
But it's
But
it's still
how do you feel like that from a perspective of Lukaku and
it's
how things
it's
have
how
been
we're
with
developing
him?
players. Is like I said, it's falling off to where you are no longer seeing footballers. Like I said, footballers weren't about the flash. They weren't about the what do I have? What about no? They played football.
Yeah. Do you think Chelsea will retain the title in Champions League this year?
It's hard to say. They have the
Just
team for it. Like I said, if they can figure out how to rebuild chemistry, and they do, they have the chemistry to do it, and get, like I said, get important players back or fill the spot. I think that the Chilwell spot should be filled. I said that should be a thing, is that we should just be looking for somebody. And if we did it with Aspilicueta, and who knows what they could pull off. And um, it's one of those things that it's up to Chelsea. Like I said, I think that we have a great agent out there, Mariana Gorski. She does, I don't know what kind of wonders, because the people who we've been blessed to see kind of like has been it's a new generation of Chelsea players. I think that, and not just on the men's side, but the women's side as well. And that's something that you're starting to see more and more in football, is the women's game finally getting an opportunity to be seen on the big stage. And that to me, speaks volumes. One, but two, um, it it says, how do I put it? I lost my talking point. Can we cut back and rewind really quick? Yeah.
There we go.
We were talking about United and what United could do about getting back into holding on to.
Don't talk about United. Don't talk about Chelsea.
You want me to talk all about Chelsea?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Just for the last, because I've only got 5 minutes left, Eric. What would you want to say about Chelsea's season so far, and do you feel that it's been a good achievement this season, even though you're probably not realistically going to win the Premier League?
I think that they have a chance of doing. I think that if they really wanted it, second should be the ambition. I think Man City's kind of turned the league on its head, and you can't really do much about it. They go into every game and they just win. They go in and they beat down on everybody. Like I watched last time I was watching the game, it was just you try and stop players like Kevin De Bruyne, and he goes into the game, and you look at players like that who you were talking about Salah earlier. You were talking about we talk about De Bruyne, where could they fit in at Chelsea? I think that just like Salah, and just like the two of them are similar. You have the team built around them. Liverpool has a team built around players like Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Even at time was there to where they just had a system that was set in place that works, and that's where they did kind of walk into Champions League games. They did walk into the Premier League. They set themselves as a team that can compete for the title, and Not to say that City is going to slow down, but at some point you think that there's more competition.
Yeah.
I don't see City necessarily. They're by far the best team, and I don't see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like you can't really stop them, even as a Chelsea fan.
I hate it.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I hear you. It's difficult to accept, but they are the powerhouse in the Premier League, and they really they stand out to me as how the Premier League, you have to chase. It's a chase. It's cat and mouse. Here you have a club, like Man United, who has to watch City. You say a club, and I'm not saying that they're a club like in that sense, but they, in terms of the trophies, no, but really in the history. But City is doing this in front of Man United's eyes, and they can't do anything really about it because they've put in a development that's working.
Yeah.
And it's getting them a lot of attention because they are dominating the Premier League, and it's as tough it is because you have trophies, but you're watching your rival, and that should be the thing that drives United to a point where you do fight for even top three within the next few years. That should be a fuel. I think that one of the things that United's missing is they're missing that spark. They're missing that thing that and it's not to say you got to go out and vice, but you need something that gets you going to where United's United again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that for me, you could talk about, on another chat, but that should be United's thing. I mean, Chelsea needs to figure out how to build this team that won the Champions League again, but put in a striker that's very familiar with the Premier League and being in the Golden Boot running every year.
Yeah.
If you figure that out, you could win treble. I think, especially with the work rate that team has.
I'd like to see an English team win the treble again. Eric, before we finish up, mate, as a prediction, what position are you putting Chelsea at the end of the season?
It could go two ways. I think it's either second or third, and I say second if they do figure out that problem where they build the chemistry and they figure out how to utilize everybody, and they fill the spots that are missing within this transfer window, and get the dynamic down to where you just you don't necessarily have to have it mesh this season, but you work. And that's second if they get that. Third is if you have a team that comes out of nowhere and kind of, because that fourth spot is going to dictate whether you have momentum to even fight for the third spot.
Yeah, got you.
See what I'm saying? And there's it's in the balance right now, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It'll be, like I said, down to important games, and Chelsea has a pretty easy schedule. Easy, I say, but it's a lot of games at the end of not guaranteed. It's a Premier League.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I say they have that ability to say, all right, here's what we can do, or here's what we, kind of, and it depends on how they handle, like I said, these next few weeks with the transfer window, or next few days with the transfer window, and if they get somebody and they fill in going back to it. But yeah, that's about it. That's about all I could think of in terms of what needs to be done, and with yeah.
That's good. Eric, that's good. That's all we want to do. A little quick nice chat about Chelsea. Brilliant, bro. Can you let everybody know where they can find your badass self, Eric? Where can they find you, bro? My top fella, mate, my compadre, my fellow DJ. Where can they get you?
Instagram at Don Eric Pye. On Twitter at the real Eric Pye. Let me put this in the chat if you wish to follow. This is Instagram. But again, thank you for having me on the show. As always, my friend, you are the living legend himself.
Himself. Cheers, bro.
Gotcha, man.
You put that in the private chat, by the way. You want to put that in the main chat?
Did.
No, you put it in private, didn't you?
I do. How do I put it on the?
Yeah, put it. Look, I'll help you out here. Look, here we go. I got you, mate. If
Throw it
you
up
want to
on-
go and check out Eric, please do check him out on Instagram in the comments. There you go. Put it up by Football United TV. Eric, thank you so much for coming in and on today. Means a lot. Been a lot of media talk going on with stuff, and
yeah.
I feel like I want to let the dust settle before even
Absolutely
going into anyone's personal lives and stuff like that. So I hope everybody just calms down tonight. There's been a lot of people like
prayers, really, to be honest, that
yeah, just take a step back, everybody, because sometimes these things you can get wrong. So just
that's true.
Hang out and support whatever you feels right. Eric, we will see you again soon. We'll have you on to talk about Man United because I know you really want to talk about Man United, even though we that's why I didn't want you to talk about Man United. I was like, don't talk anything now. I've got a show specifically lined up for you, sir, to come on and talk about United. So save all that good info. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Please smash, share, subscribe, like if you can, and we will see you again tomorrow for the Football Politics Show. Have a good rest of your weekend and Sunday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.